I'll go ahead and start. Good evening. I'm calling to order the Design Review Board for June 7th, 2016. I'd like for everyone to stand up and call the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our board members. I will start from our left.
Good evening. My name is Rich Johnson. I live in the Crabapple area.
My name is Mike Stevens. I live in the White Columns area.
I'm Tim Bryan, and I have a business in Crabapple.
I'm Ed Parsons. I live on Red Road.
I'm Laura Weissong, and I live in Crooked Creek. First order of business is to approve the current agenda. Could someone please make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I next want to approve the May meeting minutes. Would somebody make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the May meeting minutes.
And I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. And I was asked before we get started into our agenda, there are several folks in attendance who wanted a description of what the Design Review Board does. So I will do my best to try and provide you a description, and I will also add staff to jump in as necessary. The Design Review Board, the purpose is we look at items such as properties that are demoing old or existing properties. We actually review them and approve those. We also look at folks who are building new property or changing existing property, making significant changes. And we look at the construction of the building or the property. We look at the setbacks. We look at the material that they're using, where it's sited in relationship to what's already on the property, for instance, in a commercial property. Residential, we only do we're specific areas where we're asked to look at design for new subdivisions or new homes. And that's pretty much what our
Do you want
board...
to describe the difference in final reviews and courtesy reviews?
Absolutely. Feel free.
No, I was asking you to.
Oh, thanks. In addition to that, we are asked when a zoning or a rezone comes before us, we do a courtesy review. Those actually go on to a zoning board and a planning commission, and for a final vote to the city council. What we're asked to do is look at the property, look what potentially could go on there. We will have a discussion with the applicant, whoever comes in to have the discussion, who presents it to us. We will ask as many questions as possible. All of our information is actually sent to either the Zoning Appeals Board or to the Planning Commission. They take our input and then they will determine, based on public comment as well as our comments, as to what their decision would be moving forward. And then that actually will go to City Council. So those, for this evening, any of those individuals who want to speak either for or against a case, you can fill out a comment card. Those cards, I believe, are right there. Yellow, got them. Good. And we do our best to allow folks as much time as needed, but there is a time limit. Angela will keep track of that and let you know, but usually we've never gone too long over time limits for this board. So we do take in consideration, we may ask you questions to understand better what your concerns are, and that is all documented and will be sent forward after this board meeting. All of our board meetings are taped. They can be reviewed online as well. So hopefully I have explained everything. Oh, yeah. So one other comment, in addition to reviews, we also do what we call a final review. So that would be somebody coming through who had a design, and we may have already looked at it, asked for some changes, and they've come back for another review. We do a final review that says either you can go forward to the next board meeting, to Planning Commission or to council, or you'll need to go back and make revisions. So we do have that vote. We also look at, for courtesy reviews, lot layouts, and we provide that information to other boards. So hopefully I have, did I
Yeah,
catch
I think the
everything?
big distinguisher is that in a courtesy review, what we say is not, we have no decision on that. We don't approve or deny
don't
anything
vote.
on a courtesy review. It is merely providing suggestions, input, guidance as to the look and feel of the variance or rezoning, because regardless of what we say here, it moves on to the BZA and then to the Planning Commission or City Council, depending on what type of application it may be.
Great. We do have a vote for a final review. Our vote does count. All right, so I am going to move on to our first order of business, which is demolitions. And the first demolition for item 5A on our agenda is 13645 Providence Road. Rodney Reese.
Good evening. I am Scott Reese with Bromelo Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. I'm here tonight representing T. Olive Properties and Builders in their application for a demolition permit for the property at 13645 Providence Road. The applicant is intending to subdivide this property and construct 2 new residences. There is an existing abandoned residence and a couple of the kind of disrepair outbuildings. So to be able to proceed with new construction, we're going to have to remove the houses. We've done a survey, located the specimen trees. You have pictures of the structures. And it's pretty self-evident it's not a historically significant or culturally significant residence or structures. So that's kind of the standard plan. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to attempt to answer them.
So a couple really large oak trees in the backyard, are they being saved or what's
They
the
are
plan
being
there?
saved in the demo. You understand that when we will be proceeding with the minor subdivision plat, this is a whole nother process. So the item before you, the trees are being saved. I wish I could foresee the future, but I'm not the builder, I'm merely the messenger. I do know per the ordinances, as you are all, I'm sure, completely aware, any specimen tree destroyed has to be recompensed per the tree ordinance of the city of Milton. So I'm confident that if we cannot, we do everything we can to save those trees, but if we cannot, they will be duly compensated or recompensed.
Any questions from the board? Any comment from the community? All right. If there's no additional questions,
That's, wait,
sorry, we have one
So
question.
So the intent with this property at some point is to probably build a couple, 3 houses?
2.
2 houses?
Will be split pretty much straight down the center. So I think
Okay.
it's 500 feet or so. So the intent, and I have met the potential owners of the 2 separate lots. They have house plans that are farm style in design. Of course, all of that has to go through separate boards. The rural overview, or view shed, I mean, there's multiple steps before we get to, but we can't proceed until we go through. This is hurdle one of 10, 15, 20 before we build 2 new houses.
Any additional questions? Good.
Bob, oh, there you go. Over there. Through the demo process, do we have, are they going to come before us again with the final design of the house, with where the trees are located and what trees are coming and what trees are going?
Single-family houses don't go before the DRB.
Right.
That's handled.
On Providence Road said it'd be subject to the rural mountain overlay, which means they are subject to architectural review for the housing, but it doesn't go in front of the DRB.
Okay, so we're gonna have no other look at saving these trees other than, we can save the trees now, but we can't make that as a condition of.
Not knowing anything until they submit a building plan and everything.
What are your thoughts, Mark, on the trees?
Again, this is just a demo plan right here, just a
Yeah, I
demo
understand.
of the house. And
Right.
I did meet with T. Olive out there, one of the prospective buyers, and they are aware of the specimen trees. They realize that there will be recompense. They can't work around them. There's some we definitely will try to work around, but the condition of some of them may just,
Okay.
allow them to take some out.
Right,
I'm
and
not
I haven't
saying-
seen the tree, so other than just
The
to see
poplars
this
in the
stuff.
back are in really bad shape.
Right.
But we each, in the process, there will be an individual site plan produced for new construction of any residence.
Right.
In that process, which goes before the building permits department, and Mark oversees, we have to do a tree protection plan.
Right.
And if there's no way to save the trees, then they recommend it. But, we have to come up with an alternative plan before we cut 40-inch oak trees. We just can't go cut them
And Mark's got to go out there for each of these site builds to walk.
for
this
the
out.
individual site
Yeah.
plan. But
Yeah,
this
it'd
is
just be
step
nice if they
one.
could try to incorporate that into the plan to try to see what they can do.
Understand, but you're asking for someone to predict what's gonna happen
Right.
many, many steps down the way. There are several, safety nets before the trees will be cut.
Okay.
All right, then I think we're ready to, I already did that. Take a vote on item 5A. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the demo for 13645 Providence Road.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have, it looks like no final reviews this evening. Is that correct, Angela? Okay, so we are moving into item 7, courtesy reviews. And as I described earlier, these are not items we vote on, but we do provide input that is documented. And the community will be able to speak on any of these items. So the first one will be item 7A, V16-003 Providence Road, Chris Willis.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I'm Chris Willis, representing the Providence Group Custom Homes and Reserve of Providence, LLC. The community we have on the agenda tonight is Reserve of Providence. It's on Providence Road between Bethany and Freemanville Roads. It consists of 37 lots on approximately 57 acres. It's zoned AG1. I'm here today requesting variances in the subdivision for front setbacks on 13 lots and increase the height variance on 7 of those 13. We're requesting a front setback from 60 to 20 feet on 7 lots. Those lots are shown across the front here in orange all the way down. On 4 lots, for a 40-foot variance, those are in blue, and lot 3, a 45-foot front setback, and lot 21, a 50-foot. The reason for our setback reliefs based on the severe topography in the neighborhood. If you follow the orange, the topography varies from 50 to almost 90 feet. They go down into a creek bed. What we're trying to accomplish is pulling the homes up to manage the streetscape as much as anything, trying to get some semblance of a yard, not build the house 20 feet below curb, and also comply with a height variance that's difficult to do when the topo's dropping as fast as this one drops. I appeared before you on April 5th and deferred in order to meet with the community homeowners, attempted to come to agreement to gain their support. As a result of the meeting, I amended this variance request to what's before you today. It's an attempt to satisfy the community concerns. There's 9 homeowners in reserve. I removed 7 of the variance requests, reduced 6 requests from the original submittal in footage, and took 2 of the height variance requests off. What we're trying to do is kind of manage the streetscape by the reductions, the contiguous lots that we've asked for relief on, to try to help that streetscape, so we didn't have something sitting close to the home, close to the road with the severe topography, and then the next house sitting 60 feet back. So we're trying to move them up to stagger that streetscape look. The community actually asked for a little more further reductions, and we decided to proceed with the request that you have before you today. I'm open for any questions you may have.
Chris, can I just ask you, can you just explain to the board where Providence Road is, the lots that butt Providence Road on the map?
Providence Road on this site plan runs right across the top section of the plat. It runs right across here. So here's Providence. It's a gated entrance. The entrance sits right here. So it's a single entrance off Providence.
And could you also just explain to the board the status of the community, what's shaded and what's non-shaded, is certain things that may be potentially sold or what?
The shaded section of the plat is built under construction, not part of the request. So this shaded section we've built on these lots. It's not part of the request. The unshaded section are the lots that other than these lots actually here and here that are. I apologize. Yeah. The right. That was the original request. I'm sorry, looking at the wrong one. So the shaded are not included in this request. So just these lots are the ones included in the request, and I turned that around. I'm sorry to show you the topography. The topography lines running across these lots go from, that's 80 feet of topography, 80, 90, on up into the 50 range. So that's our challenge. Our challenge is the slope, the trees, the cover on Providence Road.
That's right across the street from Summit Hill, right? Summit Hill Elementary?
Yeah. Yeah, Summit Hill sits here.
Right.
Here's Summit.
No, I know where it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Chris, just so the board knows, there's 36 lots total in the community, and how many of them have been built out already, do you know?
I am at
Sold?
9, 10.
If not sold, there's 12.
There you go.
12 have been built. So
We got
there's
9 homeowners in there.
There's 36 total lots, and they were in the process of building, and they've gotten 12, no? 13 of them have been built.
9 occupied.
And now that they have the remaining lots and they're being very challenged with the topography. So Chris came in and said, geez, I might need some assistance on these. Instead of getting a variance, what we're doing is we're just going to the council because there's a number of them.
Yeah.
So it exceeds the number of variances you can get. So it's.
Were you the developer originally? Like this neighbor wasn't like partially built?
I'm a builder on the project.
Sorry, the builder.
I'm associated with the developer.
But I mean,
know.
you're not
I'm not a developer.
You are not the second builder. There's somebody else didn't start building these homes, and you're coming in after the fact.
No.
Okay. So you've been on this from the beginning.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you have any pictures of what's been built today?
In the neighborhood?
Yeah,
I do not.
that would be helpful.
Have you?
I have architectural, I just don't have actual pictures. Most of what's been built today, quite frankly, is either high on the hill. It's not the low topo lots, it's the opposite side of the street. The street drops from one side to the other, so I'd show you a bunch of pictures on hilltops for the most part. Anything else was a level, even graded house, so the front door doesn't sit below curb. When you look at, I'll give you an example of, if you take and look at this lot, this happens to be lot 7, which is this lot right here. Get that on there. If you look at lot 7, your front door's here. Your curb line's up here. You're plus 10 feet below curb if you move the house forward. If you move that house back, in these lines, there's a stream buffer in back, and this is heavily wooded back in here. If you move this house back, obviously your roof line, your second floor roof line ends up below curb. It's really as much aesthetics as trying to manage your streetscape in the neighborhood and trying to give a semblance of a yard and meeting a height variance as much as anything. The farther you move it back, you still have this issue back here, and working with staff, Bob specifically, it's working those average grades and getting into the slope is what you're trying to do. Unfortunately, that blue line you see is the real slope line on that lot. That's actual.
So I wasn't here when you came before. Have you had conversations with it sounds like it came back after it was tabled, after talks to talks to the community? How did those go?
They went well. I think, as any homeowner in any neighborhood, they're scared of change. They can't visualize the streetscape. They see the challenges, I believe, but I'll let them speak for the changes. They came back with a list of, I think I mentioned to you, I pulled 7 off, made numerous changes, and they wanted me to make some additional changes. And to be honest with you, it doesn't help us do our job, do what we're trying to accomplish. It doesn't help me meet the height variance. It doesn't get me a better streetscape. So we decided to proceed forward with our compromised plan. So we met somewhere down the line, and I'm here today.
I guess my thoughts on this is, because you were the original one to come in here, and you chose where to locate your roads, and you knew that everything between that road and Providence was going to be a challenge because it's steep. And I'll tell you, I drop my kid off every day at Summit Hill, and when I come out of there, I'm looking at that side hill.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that's going to look like when you have houses that are super high right there in front of, 500 cars a day that go in and out of Summit Hill. I think you kind of sealed your own fate when you chose to put the road there where you can't put a house on that side of the road.
I'd have to think they walked the property before they started building it.
I would assume.
Well, and you'd have a topo for that area as well. You're going to know what the topography is.
I would be interested if there's people here to speak, just because you're torn, right? Because the initial thought here is, all right, they knew what they were getting into, but I'd be interested to see what the community that lives there thinks, just simply because they might not want vacant homes, they might not want vacant lots. I don't know what their thought process is.
So
Excuse me, I'm Warren Jolly, I'm president of the Providence Group. I'm the original developer of the project.
Yeah, you need to state your name, your
I
address.
said Warren Jolly,
your address.
11340 Lakeville Drive, Johns Creek, Georgia.
Thank you.
I'm president of Providence Group. We're the original developer and the owner of the property. When you look at, first of all, this is 57 acres, 37 lots, so it's not that dense for an AG1, for an acre lot. So these are bigger lots anyway. But when we're developing the site, that street that you're talking about that goes up the hill that backs up to the school, there was severe rock in that road, and so we had to adjust that grade up. So that compounded the issue on the lots on the bottom hillside. And so we had a variance or topography or an issue there that we didn't know before development. We did rock test and drilled it, and obviously you got septic tank in Milton, so you don't want to go disturb the whole area. But in that area, that grade of that road got changed, which compounded, which is, I guess, a variance on one side, those lots on the right-hand side that are on that road. So when we developed it, we originally thought that the grade was going to be one thing, but we ended up, because of the topo and the rock, being another grade. And if we would have blasted the rock, then all the lots on the other hill would be on solid rock too. So we had an issue, had to make a decision there. So we knew we could get variances, or should be able to get variances on those amount of lots. So originally, we're only talking about 4 or 5 lots to get variances for. And then it compounded to, when we met with staff, that, well, we really, if I'm concerned with what that house looks like, if I'm you, if I push that house further back, it's going to look a lot worse than me pushing that house closer to that street that I built. So, if you push it 20 more feet, 40 more feet up the hill, it's going to be a whole lot less easier to hide. And the compromise was given the view shed with the city, which is not there now. You can build the house 60 feet back and not comply with the view shed as it's currently zoned. So that was kind of the trade-off. So if I drove by there every day, I think I'd rather see it pushed up the hill. And I think even the neighbors that live in the street would see it better than seeing the roof of the house, seeing the mass of the house rather than the top of the roof.
All right, thank you. I'd like anyone from the community want to speak for this property? Anyone? Yep. Sir, have you filled out a card? Can you fill one up?
So if you'd like to speak,
Yeah, you have.
for or against, you have to fill out a yellow card and just.
If they go 60
Yeah.
feet off the hill, the roof line would be up at the.
Right.
Okay. I don't see anyone wanting to speak. Board, any more questions for the applicant?
So if you had rock problems in the road, what makes you think you're not going to have rock problems on the lot?
Well, I think, as Warren said, all these things you manage during construction, some of them are unexpected. I tell you that the topo's the topo. It's fairly common in a number of neighborhoods in Milton, and when you're managing septic lines, soils for septic lines, and quite frankly, bringing in fill sometimes doesn't help you on septic lines. You're managing all those issues. I tell you that the other side of the street then gets taller, and those sit above curb, and you end up a little more in a clear cutting position, or doing the same thing. You're creating walls. I mean, you guys, at the end of the day, there's walls and foundations and subwalls, and Bob's pretty creative. I mean, the compromise here, as Warren said, certainly is the view shed, the 360-degree architecture, and Bob working with us to create architecture that's appealing, that doesn't come to as I think, Matt, you said you're concerned about it. That's our compromise. We're trying to work with the topography we have today.
Well, unfortunately, I think you just ended up losing some lots is what ended up because of the topography. And really, What my concern is, you know, one of the purviews of the design review board is, what is that gonna look like from the backside? And you know, if you cut a big house and you want a variance on your height, everybody that drives in and out of Summit Hill is gonna be looking at a really tall house. And that's not gonna go over well with the citizens. There's no way that's gonna,
Yeah,
they're gonna be in favor of
To
that.
play devil's advocate, I mean, in theory, they could come in here and put a lot smaller homes that don't, you know, conform with the rest of the neighborhood, just so they don't have to get variances and move forward.
Well, they're gonna have to get a variance no matter what they do, because they're looking for a setback variance.
Not if you build a lot smaller home with a smaller footprint.
Yeah, what is Plan B? If you don't get the variance, it seems to me like you just put it where it doesn't look as good, but the house is going there no matter what, right?
Well, I mean, if the variance request is a proactive request to try to get ahead of the game. It's a custom neighborhood. I'm building custom houses in there. I don't have an actual plan to start a house today on that lot. So, you know, Plan B, we'll turn and look at what we have to do to build product on those lots. You know, there's always, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to answer that question today. I don't have one.
So, Bob,
So some of the options that we came up with, because the slope is so steep, as you can see when you have it up there, is to bring the eave line down from the top of the top of the second floor down really to the first floor, and then just create some small dormers up on the roof area to give some light into the second floor bedrooms or whatever is up there.
You got that in your packet.
And you have that in your packet. So what it would do, in essence, is it would break down the scale of the back of the building, because you'd have a subwall that drops down in the basement. It would, in essence, it would make the back of the building look the same visually as far as the height.
What Bob's talking about is taking a home that's situated very similar to an Andrews plan, that's got an eave line that's predominantly, that sits on the first floor, and what sits on the second floor coming out of it are dormer effects. So instead of seeing.
You break up the roof.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, and instead of seeing.
You're breaking up shingles.
Instead of seeing
Yeah.
a full basement plus the subwall plus the
And
first
three
and second,
stories.
Is
it
this
really
effect
is
right
like-
here? This effect right here, which puts your eave line up to the second floor, what you do is you pull elements like a gable, a lower porch line down in this area,
break the scale.
to bring that roof line down, to bring that massing on that wall down.
What have you thought about in terms of landscaping?
Well, there's heavy tree cover on all the lots that I'm asking for variances. We really haven't thought heavily about, I've got recompense in the neighborhood.
And the other thing was that it was platted before the rural viewshed guidelines were approved and put in place. So the applicant would agree to conform to those rural viewshed guidelines as part of this variance request. So then we would have that 60-foot buffer along Providence Road that we either, restore or try to create some sort of a real landscape buffer viewshed look that would naturalize the look along.
If you naturalize the hill to where the hill was,
Naturalize the hill so that it would break up the look and you wouldn't see.
so you don't think you're looking up a steep hill. You may see a house at the top of the hill, but you won't be able to see,
So, and
quite
in
frankly,
order-
the bottom portion of the house.
Being that the topography drops so steep right from the road that they built, that, if they were to really truly go back to 60 feet, the whole house would just drop down. You'd only see the top of the roof line from the road. It does devalue the product a little bit. I won't kid you. It does devalue the product. It does, and it does push the houses further and closer to Providence, which then, of course, is harder to camouflage that, so.
Well, and that creek line, that center line of that creek line sits through all these lots, sitting up here, and that tree cover sits off that center line of that creek, and the other side of the creek, so it's got good cover on it.
I don't see.
We're trying to stay out of that area. Obviously, we have a 75-foot stream buffer to comply with.
They chose to put up there, whether they hit rock
What's the distance from that 60-foot
Everything in white.
building setback line
The ones that are-
to the 75-foot impervious setback? Do you know roughly?
Gray's already been built. So some of the stuff is in white.
So really, the biggest question is the vision.
40 feet. It looks about 80 feet to me.
Visual impact from the problem.
Yeah, I'd say 60, but.
From the people coming in.
It's 60 plus.
Yes, I did bring a scale in with me, or I can measure that. That's 75, that impervious line? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like in lot,
Impervious
So do
line
I.
sits here.
lot 5, for example, there's a 60-foot, where it should be 60 feet setback line from the street in front to the 75-foot impervious buffer. That looks to be about double the 40 feet you're looking to move the house forward. So
Yeah,
I'm guessing
and-
it's
There's less
68.
rock there
And
than there is up here.
this house is set 38 feet behind the curb. There's about an 18-foot right-of-way plus the 20. So this is set about 38 feet behind the road. So obviously, if I move this thing 40 feet back, the house is here.
So that's not an
Right.
argument that we have.
So, I guess my point in asking the question is that if it sits where it's supposed to, at 60 feet back, it's still plenty big to build this normal house. It's just not gonna look anywhere near as good if it's not pushed forward. Right, there's no way to stop, I think what people like to do is stop this from being built, but that's not gonna happen. So it's a matter of looking at it to how's it gonna look the best.
I think that the real question's gotta be asked, and something I think that Bob most likely will have to deal with the developer is going to be how it's gonna look from the rural view shed, and I think the effort needs to be put on what that's going to look like. And we should care more about what it's gonna look like from the road than what it's going to be, whether or not we're asking for a variance on the front. Now, the problem's gonna be is you got the gray house already built, these houses aren't built. So if you move these houses forward, then you gotta have a buy-in by the community of the people that live in the houses that bought those houses based on the fact that it's a 60-foot setback.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have, in my opinion, and I'm sorry for being late today and I'm last in the game here, but the gray lots represent existing homeowners, right?
Not all of them, but.
Not all are sold.
They're
But-
not the ones getting variances on.
Okay.
Does anybody occupy 10, 11, and 13?
10, no. 11, no. 13, yes.
So, what I guess I'm trying to say is, in order for me to support something like this, the people that actually live in this community already, and they bought based on a 60-foot setback, then I would suggest that we would have to have that particular homeowner's buy-in to what you're going to do. And so it comes down to having, quote-unquote, a stakeholders meeting with the homeowners that currently exist. Because if the houses are built and not sold, the people buying the houses, as long as they're made aware and those houses get built 20 feet, they know what they're buying.
And I've done that.
Okay.
I deferred and you weren't here, obviously, so we're kind of
Well, I'm sorry,
we're rehearsing
forgive me.
this,
Well,
but I've done that. I've gone back to them. Certainly, we started this process in February. We've certainly gone back and forth. I'm not sure, quite frankly, why they're not here tonight, but
One's here.
I understand. Okay.
There's one.
Are you in lot 13?
I'm not at lot 13, I'm on lot
Would you,
29.
would you like to speak? Have you filled out a card?
There are no public comment cards filled out.
We can work that out.
We'll work through that.
I'm sorry, please forgive me because I was late.
That's all right.
It was welcome to Atlanta traffic, but it took me an hour and 45 minutes to get from Marietta to here. And so if I'm repeating something, I'm sorry.
And just before you go any further, like the applicant said, he has had several stakeholder meetings, and I don't know exactly what the balance of support versus opposition is. I've talked to a few of the current property owners. One was she had some questions, and once I answered them, she currently doesn't have issues. And then I literally at 5:50 as I was coming here, I got an email from another property owner who's in opposition, and I don't even know what it said. I just saw there was an opposition. So
Well, it's good to note that houses can be built on these lots Now it becomes just a matter of position to where they get built.
And I guess the only one other area of concern I had was, I think you had mentioned that you did meet, they wanted some additional changes and that process stopped. That's somewhat concerning to me because in this situation, I think you got to get complete buy-in and agreement. I know builders and developers don't want to do that, but you're asking for some significant variances here.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think that you don't want to do it. I think that what I'm trying to come to, and from a city standpoint, you're looking at it from Providence Road, and the homeowners look at it from their street and what's across the street from them. In my conversations with them, they're not concerned about Rural View Shed and Providence Road. They can't see the back of those houses when they drive in off Providence Road. Their major concern is what they see from their front yard or backyard, I suppose. Not in this case, actually, from their front yard. So it's curb appeal, and it's trying to manage a great streetscape in a community that's a high-end neighborhood. And, if you've all been over in Lake Haven, you've seen those that are 20 feet below the curb, and they don't look good when you're looking at turtlebacks and furnace vents and whatnot on top of a roof line.
I live behind Lake Haven, and I will tell you that is a fact.
That's what?
What you just said is a fact.
Well, I understand.
I think they could have laid out those houses in some of those lots better.
And that's somewhat of what we're trying to do. So
have you got these lots?
And it's a give and take, obviously. The Rural View Shed, and as Bob described, our compromises are trying to satisfy all parties. So
we're not going to satisfy absolutely everybody.
We know that. Thank you.
But the fact of the matter is, it just needs to come down to the basics of what there is or isn't and what you can and cannot do. The election that you can take is to build a different house. If you build a different house, the neighbor itself may not, in fact, like the house you have to build to fit the lot. Or do you give up the frontage on the roadside so you bring it closer to the front, like you say? Personally, they're all numbers to me, and it comes down to trying to take a house and fit a house to a lot. I get tired of people that try to fit a lot to a house. So the people that grade everything and grade it down to fit a house, I'd rather see more options to where when the house is selected, that the house is selected based on the topography that's available to put that house on, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
In other words, build the house to the lot versus converting the lot.
Have you got these lots perked already? Have you perked lots 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
We did original tests in there, so I'd say, yeah, we have.
They're all perked?
Yeah.
Where's the septic field for these?
They vary. I don't have a septic.
Down by the road? On the
left side, right side, typically. I'm sure there's a few of them that are in the rear.
There's none in the front because it's all built.
Oh, yeah, there's none in the front. But, I mean, some of them, a lot of these lots I'm showing you are pie-shaped cul-de-sac lots, so. Pardon me? Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a comment. Personally, I think what you're doing makes sense. What I don't like, and unfortunately I can't change, and nobody can at this point, these, just for the record, these kind of lots are, someone will end up buying them because they get enamored with it's new, but they're gonna be very difficult resale homes, and they're gonna lower the value of everybody's home in that whole neighborhood. It's really a shame those are gonna be built there, but that's just personal opinion.
Yeah, you may be on an acre lot, but none of it is usable.
And it's just, no one wants to have that road noise or look down on the road in a resale standpoint. They do, they end up getting a huge discount. Any home that's built on a road like that is gonna end up decreasing in value, and that's my expert opinion of 11 years of doing that. So, it's a shame, but we can't stop it. But I do like the fact that you're working with the city, and I think you're gonna improve the streetscape by what you're doing, and I'd rather have it closer to the street in the neighborhood than closer to Providence Road, so to me it makes sense.
So,
Yeah, we're just getting a comment.
okay.
Mark, you have any?
Okay. Okay.
So mean, I guess we can let him come on up and speak if you're ready, and he can fill it out after he speaks.
Yeah. Sir, why don't you go ahead and speak, and then you can fill it out after?
Even the ones that are on the inside. Even the ones that are on the interior. They don't have any impact on Providence Road.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Bruce Maddox, and I reside in the community in question, the Reserve at Providence. I currently live on lot 29, which is 3045 Haven Reserve. I do have a document for the board, for the council to review, prepared by the homeowners, that I'd like to leave with you. Here's an extra copy too. And first, I would like to applaud the Providence Group for attempting to work with the homeowners on the variance requested. Those discussions were fairly fruitful. However, they did come to a stall. And basically, I'll try and summarize. The homeowners are in agreement on several lots as far as the variance requested. There are approximately 13 lots that the homeowners would like the Providence Group to reconsider or adjust the setback variance as requested. Actually, 7 of the lots we'd like to request no variance. 6 remaining lots we'd like to request a revised variance. So it's spelled out pretty much in this document. And so as the document is prepared right now, the current homeowners are in opposition to the request, as the request stands.
Can I just ask, has the developer had the opportunity to read that document, or staff?
He hasn't had a chance to read this document as it's prepared now, but he has had a chance to read the emails that comprise the document. So basically, the first 2 pages summarize our position, but emails have gone back and forth to the developer stating the position that the first 2 pages summarize, if that is clear.
Any other questions by the board?
Well, I'd have to have time to read the document so I could have an opinion on the document
Yeah, I
one way
would
or the
too.
other. I think that really should come down to a staff level to look at that document first and determine what part of it complies with the existing ordinances we have and how we could make that work. Obviously, our board here is to do the best that we can do for each and every homeowner. And just as I said before, I asked the question, how many of these lots have been sold? Who are these lots? Everybody in here said they bought into a 60-foot lot variance. That's what they bought. So I think you have to get at least the majority of the homeowners that exist now to agree to whatever those variances need to be. And unfortunately for the homeowners, you're not going to get everything you want, and they're not going to get everything they want. It's going to be a compromise, and it really needs to be an open dialogue between the existing homeowners and the developer to come up with something that's reasonable, and then it will become then an idea of the city how they can make that work so we can conform with the ordinances that we have, which includes the rural view shed. I understand that he says the homeowners don't care about rural view shed, but a lot of homeowners do in a lot of places. And so we have to look at all aspects of it, and it takes time. And I think that if an answer is going to come out of the board tonight, I don't think that answer is here yet. I think that it's still a lot of work to be done between the developer, city staff, and the homeowners. I live behind you, essentially. I live over behind Lake Haven, which, this property backs pretty close up to it. I knew the old man that lived on this piece of property. And it is a pretty piece of property, and it's going to make beautiful homes throughout that area. Most of us out there would like to see Milton stay exactly the way that it was when we moved out there, for me, 20 years ago, roughly. But that's not a reality. And we can only do the best job we can do to try to preserve the rural view shed that we've asked for and what the public has voted and basically asked their elected officials to vote for. And we have to try to protect the homeowner rights, which is your rights, which if you had a 60-foot setback on your property and you thought you were buying houses that were in a community of 60-foot setbacks, then that's what you should be getting. But when that becomes an impossibility, or putting a house 60 foot back on a lot, then is a detraction to your neighborhood, then that's a choice that consumers have to make. And they have to work with the developer to get it, to put the best house they can. This guy, I don't know this group real well, so I think it's the first time I've met you, maybe the second. But they already sound like that they're good guys and want to try to work with the homeowners. And my suggestion is that really get a detailed plan of how this is going to work out and how it's really going to look. Because really, as a consumer, you want to know, how's it going to look from your street when you drive in? How's it going to look from Providence Road? What's it going to be like in 10 years, 20 years? What's it going to look like? The fact that kids are not going to play down that steep hill, I'd never buy that lot, because I know that if I was a young person, that would not work out well for me. But retaining walls and leveling off stuff and making it pretty, that stuff works.
The view shed doesn't go away.
No, I mean, the
That's
view
problem
shed's
I
not
have.
going to.
The view shed is not going to be good from that, from Providence, no matter what they do.
And I think since this is a courtesy review, all we can do is make recommendations, so there is no vote. If there are any comments that need to be duly noted, I would make them now.
I do have one more question for the developers. I think your homes in there are beautiful, they're very good architecture, and they're pretty homes. But is it possible to bring in more fill and make a 50 or 60 foot setback work on those ones you're asking for 20 feet?
Again, my name is Warren Jolly, president of Providence Group. You know, unfortunately, what you're given is you've got Providence road grade and you've got our new road grade. Nothing's going to change between those two grades. The majority of those lots that back up. So if we were to bring in the fill, then we're going to have to put up a 30-foot wall closer to Providence Road, you know, and then hold that house up. So the house will be more in line with the homes up in our neighborhood, but then you're going to have a huge wall, you know. So we're trying to get, you know, so no matter what we've got point A and point B to deal with.
But that wall, I know that wall's super expensive to build, but it also would make the homes fit in better with the community.
Right.
Wouldn't
But,
they?
well,
I'm not
But
so
not
sure
on-
a
not on
30,
the
I'm
road
not
view
sure a
shed.
30-foot wall overlooking Providence is going to ever look good to anybody.
yeah.
Well, it can be,
I mean, obviously-
it can be landscapes.
Yeah, the best way to
They're going to be,
build
otherwise
these,
going to be houses with a backyard of a ski slope,
Yeah.
you know?
obviously the best way to build is without walls. And we think because of the driveway grade, just like you said, you know, the backyard, you also, if you got a driveway that's too steep, it's unmarkable also, you know. So the idea of putting the house closer to the street and be able to get the driveway closer to the main house will keep the roof line more in line with the homes that are up there that are already built, and then put you away from Providence Road to be able to do the buffer, the plantings, and put the septic field back there further up the hill.
Hey, Bob, this may be a novel idea, but the house is 60 feet or whatever the rural view shed is. Put the front of the houses towards Providence. And have separate driveways for these particular houses.
Well, some of these lots, have a creek, so there's about 4 or 5 lots that actually, you could do that on. That-
I've never walked it, so I don't.
That would work too.
Yeah, so you got a creek all the way down the back between the road.
Right.
Yeah, the lots that he's having trouble with the grade would be 5, 6, 7, and all of those back the creek.
So all these, you're thinking just those.
Could we clarify something from the homeowner's perspective, though? Because I think we're
Yes.
talking about lots that really the homeowners don't have necessarily. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one point. The homeowners really don't have much of a problem for the lots in question and the variance setbacks that have been requested by the Providence Group that back up to Providence Road. That's really, and in the beginning, the entire request was really mostly about those lots. However, the developer expanded his request to include almost all of the other remaining lots in the subdivision. That's really where the rub comes in for the homeowners. It's not the Providence Road the lots that back up to Providence Road. It's all of the other lots. I was the very first contract in this neighborhood. I was the very first home to move in. And one of the lots that's being requested is right next to me. It's an identical lot to mine. So, you know, in my mind, there's no reason for that variance. However, I was willing to compromise to a degree, but not to the degree that's been requested. So that's indicative of the type of situation that we have, is that the majority of the opposition, if you will, is not for those lots that, you know, you're discussing.
So
around
it
the
sounds
rural
like to me that
home
the
service.
homeowners and the developer, the builder, can get together, see what's important to both of you, and come up with something that the city can buy into.
I think
Yeah,
so.
the rural view shed is an important issue for us, and it's going to always be that important issue. And it'd be a good question to ask why he needs to get a variance on a lot that's identical to your lot. And all the interior lots that are like that, I would ask the same question. But the biggest question I would ask if I was a homeowner next door to that is, I'd want to see what house is being put there. The reality of it is, if it was an extraordinary house they're putting there and they wanted the variance, and I thought that was an extraordinary house that brought a lot to my neighborhood, I might not care so much about that. So it would have to be seeing specifically what's on each specific lot that's going to go there. You know, I'm a prime suspect for that. I've always liked large lots, and I don't like being close to anybody or anything. And when I was building, I had a hard time building on small lots because I just didn't like them. And I wanted that separation. And the lots that I thought were incredibly unbuildable in Cobb County, and terribly, terrible lots that I refused to buy, I could kick myself 100 times over for not buying those lots, because they turned out to be incredibly beautiful places at the end of the day. You know, I just didn't have the foresight to see that a lot of people didn't want to cut a lot of grass, you know, and I was wrong. So my point being is that in order for y'all to be able to have buy-in in this, I think you'd want to see what houses are going on what lots and what the houses look like. And then an assessment can be made to what you want, what you don't want, what they can and cannot do, and then what the city wants or don't want.
What is the reason behind moving lot 30, 40 feet to 40 feet? Why are you moving that 20 feet closer to the road?
Lot 31, side setback 40, and lot 29.
Step up and
Again, I'm Chris Willis. Lot 31 setbacks 40, and lot 60s, or 29 is 60, which happens to be Mr. Maddox's lot. We were just trying to help the streetscape by trying to even that off. We're trying to move it
offset
up.
the houses so they don't
We're
look
trying
like
to move
them
it
all.
off. That little clip in the back makes it very difficult. A lot of these houses are the farmhouse look. They're really wide, and they're not really deep, but that curve in the back, it's got a sewer or a drainage easement sitting through the back, and it makes it a tight fit. Somebody wants Bob.
It's not me.
That answer your question?
Yeah.
Have you already picked out the floor plans for each one of these lots?
No, it's a custom neighborhood. To be honest with you, we started 7 houses when we were in there, so we obviously picked those. Mr. Maddox actually picked his own floor plan. Lot 27 did the same. I think lot 17 did the same. We've got a number of people that, I know lot 24 did a lot of customization on theirs. You get up in that price point, people customize their floor plans, they change their elevations, and so we've done a lot of that. It's not a cookie cutter kind of thing.
Okay.
He's got 60 on the front. Now they want, that's why they want to do that.
Well, I think we're done with comments. So, everybody good?
Yep.
Angela, you've got everything? All right. Mr. Chairman, would you like to finish the last item?
No, I'm gonna let you finish. You're doing a good job.
All right. So, moving on to our last item, item 7B, RZ 16-002, Well Road, Vickery Crest Tract, Donegal Lane.
And just so the board knows, I have the wrong explanation on the agenda, about what he's asking for, so the applicant can explain that to you when he comes up.
Basically, I think their lots must have sewer, gotta be close to the road.
You should have 6 of them.
Hey, maybe. Angela, are the houses in Brookshade, are they four-sided brick? They're not. It's three-sided, isn't it?
There's stucco and all kinds of things. It's
Okay.
really a mix. They're older, 15, 20-year-old houses.
Yeah, I've only been in a few of them, so. But I thought they had siding on the back of them.
All right, so Angela, you mentioned the description was incorrect, so what is the
Can tell you.
sir, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Gary Geddes, and I'm here tonight on behalf of SR Homes. We're proposing a community that is consists of 26 home sites. It is on 17.25 acres. We are purchasing that land from the seller who owns 42 acres, and we're requesting an R3A zoning. Our homes would be probably of a size of about 3,400 square feet. You would have 4 and 5 bedroom homes, some with master on the main, 4.5 baths, side into garages. You would have brick, stone. I don't foresee us putting any stucco at all. We haven't built any and applied any stucco to any homes that I'm aware of. We would have a cementous material, hardy plank, architectural. You may have shakes and batten board in some areas, maybe at dormers and things like that. And I think that pretty much covers it. The lot sizes are an average of, the smallest is at 18,000 square feet, and then goes up to 27,000, maybe a little bit larger in some areas, to the adjoining Brookshade community on the northern border, which would be the southern border of Brookshade.
So Bob, your thoughts? You're quiet over there.
Well, as far as the density is concerned, I'd like to hear from the general public, and I said as far as the density.
I can't hear you, Bob.
louder?
As far as the density is concerned, I said I'd like to first hear from the general public, because I know there's probably some for and some against.
Okay.
So I would like to hear what the general public's got to say. And then, of course, the ultimate would be the decision is really up to the council as far as density. So this board really, tonight, doesn't really address density in and of itself, so.
What is, Bob, what's it currently zoned for? And
It's currently zoned as an AG1 zone.
Okay.
Yes. Some of the concerns I had specifically about the sites, and these are gonna come up almost on all sites, but I'm finding a trend here, is one is the stormwater management areas are always shown in very small applications, 24,000 square feet. And then when they go to do the hydrology study, they find that it's just too small of an area, and they end up building walls to retain the water. And what we really look for is more of a naturalized storm detention area. So I want to make sure that the recommendation includes that all the stormwater management areas are naturalized and have no walls.
And have a hydrology study.
And per the hydrology, but I really don't want to discourage any walls, because what happens is they try to fit in as many lots as they can and make those areas really tight, and then they end up building bathtubs in essence, and they really just look unsightly. The other one is, of course, with the grades, because there are a lot of we're meeting all challenging lots now. We're getting to the point where a lot of the easy lots were built, and these are all more challenging lots, and the grades are a concern. And we're going to start to see a lot of the same issues repeat over time, where people come in and say, oh, we have a steep slope or a sharp elevation change, and now it's, we're back in front of the board again because we just can't get these things built. So it all looks good on a 2D piece of paper, but I really want to start looking at these things and visualizing them in 3 dimensions to really see what it is, in fact, that we're looking at and what we're really approving as the end result. So,
what's the lowest elevation? It looks like the highest is 1118, probably. So
1084, 1080.
I see 1076.
yeah, these are 2-foot contours on the map.
Yeah. Well, they continue to go down, so.
1058.
Well, at the place where, at the very end of the stormwater management area over at lot 18, the elevation exiting is 1072.
In front of the lot, you're about 1050 probably, I would guess, wouldn't you think? I didn't take the time to count them over.
Well, let's just see.
So it goes up right there, right?
Probably around 1080 up at the curb.
So the road basically runs down the ridge and it falls off on both sides of the road, correct? Or
Yes, sir.
I never liked this much density, but as you heard my prior comment, it's never been my cup of tea.
So I think, why don't we go ahead and open up for public comment, and let's hear what our community has to say, and then we will come back to questions.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paula Corwin, and I live at 165 Oakhurst Leaf Drive. And although my home's not immediately impacted by the development, we're actually just a little bit past where the building will take place. But the points I'd like to make, number one, I'd like you all to take a look back at your logo for the city of Milton, and what you see on there is a horse, not a hamster. And I think a lot of us who've decided to have an hour and 45-minute potential commute have done so with the expectation that she will protect our investment and our quality of life. And that's what we're all opposed to, is to build on less than an acre lot. And all of the homes that are adjacent to where this building will take place are pretty close to an acre, as well as the homes in Vickery Crest on the other side. So that's my main concern. I think the quality of the build is going to be fine, and I know there's some concerns from the Vickery Crest subdivision for the fact that they're going to plan to have construction traffic going into the only road in, where there are lots of children in the neighborhood, and there's a cul-de-sac there. And there are a lot of other concerns with regard to eliminating nature. I mean, the reason I moved out of a downtown is so I could look out my back window and see the beautiful deer that come through, and I'm concerned that a lot of things are going to change for us as in this trend starts. I think it's just a downward slope. So I really hope that, you know, as elected officials, that you'll do your job and protect your neighbors and the community. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can the applicant just address, is this going to become part of Vickery Crest? Or is this a independent development of Vickery Crest? And you just cut through Vickery Crest to get to it?
You can ask the question.
The entrance to the community is through the Vickery Crest community, but it'll have its own mail kiosk and everything set up separately. So there's no plans, you know, to be a part of Vickery Crest. I'm not sure. We haven't worked with the
But
residents.
your road, your access
Right.
is from
Their
Vickery
road.
Crest.
Yes,
so
sir.
to the public, it's going to seem like this is an addition to Vickery Crest.
There could be that perception, yes,
And
sir.
so if that's the perception, and these are lesser sized lots than the folks in Vickery Crest.
Well, there's about 4 homes to 7 homes. I'm not sure the exact number right at the entrance. Excuse me. The majority of the lots in Vickery Crest are our size or smaller. It's a CUP zoning designation. And as you enter in and get towards our community, down near where the amenity package is, there are some larger lots. I'm not sure why that is that way. I'm not sure for the reason. I'm not sure if sewer didn't work from a gravity flow to tie in. I'm not sure. I didn't engineer it. I didn't design it. I don't know. But I will admit that those few lots right there entering in are larger. But they're also larger than any of the other lots inside the majority of the Vickery Crest lots.
Well, we can't seem to act like we're willing to accept downsizing of the lots from what Vickery Crest would be. So whatever the average size lot is in that subdivision would be something that I would suspect that you would have to conform with, or that would be something, I mean, it's up for the council to vote, but.
What he's saying, I think, is that Vickery Crest lots are very similar in size, is what he's saying.
Well, he's saying that, but obviously the public doesn't think that. So, but the fact is, it's easy to determine what the average lot is in size in Vickery Crest. And if this subdivision's built in unison with Vickery Crest, that you gotta drive through it to get to the new neighborhood, and that would be something I think would be what needs to be done.
But regardless, right now it's AG1, so until it's rezoned.
Yeah, this land is AG1 regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I remember is that one developer had this, built a handful, 5, 6, 10, whatever it was, homes, and a lot of them were Fuqua. And then the crash happened, and then Sharp took over and finished out Vickery Crest with a smaller home.
Yes, sir.
Much lower price point than what the neighborhood was started at.
It's because they bought the lots cheaper. You know, it still comes down to that when you have a subdivision and you're going to go through that particular subdivision to get to a new subdivision, the new subdivision shouldn't be anything less than what the existing subdivision is. And so the mantra should be, it's got to be an equivalent neighborhood to Vickery Crest, which is what you got to drive through.
Will there be an attempt to share the amenity area?
We haven't asked, but naturally, that would be something that we would want to approach. Yes, sir.
And have y'all talked to Vickery Crest about any kind of improvements they might need to their right up to the roadway that comes through their community?
Are you talking
Because
about
with all the trucks coming in and out.
Are you talking about construction traffic?
Between construction traffic, I mean, it's going to be hard on the roads that
Right.
come into the community. So what happens if the roads get damaged when you're building your new construction?
That's a good question, and we had a public information meeting last week, and that was brought up by the citizens. And so we're going to approach and talk to the seller and see if we can have an access, some way to where we're not interfering with their quality of life or doing something like that. So that's our first approach right there, is to try and be able to do that. The seller currently is out of the country, and so we're not able to address these issues that have arisen over the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Is that a public or a private road?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Is that public or a private road?
It's public.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had interjected, I'm not sure if we've completed public comment.
No, I'm sure
No,
there's a bunch
we have
more people who want to talk.
I'm
Just
sorry.
one more quick question.
Yes, sir.
It looks like you want to put a garbage receptacle at the entrance. Is that right? By the mail kiosk?
That's the mail kiosk.
It says garbage
It
receptacle.
says garbage receptacle. What does that mean?
Well, just all mail kiosks have to have a garbage receptacle.
Oh, just a garbage
it's a
can. You're not
small
talking like a
little-
dump station or anything.
Yeah, no, if you pick up your mail, you gotta have a place to throw, people throw the mail on the floor.
Gotcha.
Right, we're talking about an
Okay.
architecturally designed
Okay.
kiosk right there.
No, I'm
that,
with you.
You know, that
Okay.
somebody can take their
Junk mail.
their mail, take their bills and throw them in there. for
Gotcha.
us.
So I actually have two. One it might be more efficient. This is from Jeffrey Letterman. He had to leave early, but he just wanted to have it read into the record.
Can you state your name?
Yeah, my name is Michael Parisi. I live at 12892 Donegal Lane, Milton, Georgia. I am a resident of the Vickery Crest subdivision. So first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I think I've heard some remarks from some of the folks that had to present before us that made it seem like you all weren't valued or that the process was too cumbersome for developers, but I actually think it's quite the opposite. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I'm not happy to be here, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here to talk about the neighborhood. So a couple of things that were brought up earlier about Vickery Crest I just wanted to clarify. One is I'm actually a resident that lives in the flag lot that adjoins this property. I live on a lot that's over an acre. It's about 1.1, a little over 1.1 acres.
Are you on
on
the
a
left or
septic.
the right?
I'll be on the left if you're driving down Donegal Lane.
Gotcha.
I was one of the last homes built in Vickery Crest, so all of the homes down at that end of the neighborhood are over an acre in size. They're all on septic. I believe that is part of why it was done that way. I also believe that part of why it was done that way is to the point on topography and the lay of the land. The proposal put forth by the builder would require significant amount of grading. The land has a tremendous amount of water runoff. I can show a video from when they built my home. I actually have a pretty long driveway that gets back to my lot, and it's a very steep hill. At the time, they had to wrap one of the drains for erosion control, and that created a river through the other homes in the Vickery Crest subdivision, their property, while it was being built. So I think that the stormwater runoff is certainly a concern. It's a heavily wooded area. Most of us that all of us that back up to that parcel have woods behind our home. Many of us had a tree save, which is not included in the plan put forth by the developer. The density of Vickery Crest homes was about almost one home per acre on average, but you'll find that the density of the proposed development is over 1.5. They have not preserved any green space. Their homes are very close together if you actually do the math on the lot width. And I think that's because of the topography of the land and the parcels, but they're asking for a variance, and I don't think it's appropriate to do that. So my ask would be that this committee would cite some of these concerns as well as impact on the environment, the endangered species and environmentally sensitive parts of this land, and also note that the owner of this property is asking for it to be subdivided so it could be developed. So the owner should be able to provide them with either more land, to provide us with tree buffers in between our homes. The setback that they proposed is 30 feet versus all of us, at least on Vickery Crest side, had a 50-foot setback because we're on AG1 zoned land. And they also should be able to provide construction access and or other access from Hopewell Road, since the property owner's lot actually connects to Hopewell Road. At the public participation meeting, the last thing I'll say is, one of the points that was made and the questions that were asked is why did they design this neighborhood in the way that they did, such that it abuts to Vickery Crest and Brookshade homes very closely with only a 30-foot setback, but is so far removed from the existing parcel owner's property? And the answer was to protect his privacy. And so I would ask that this committee consider the fact that this person wants to profit from subdividing their parcel in a way that protects their own privacy at the expense and the home values of the surrounding homeowners. Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to come speak?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Pierce. I live at 225 Oakhurst Leaf Drive in the Brookshade subdivision. My home is directly affected by this. I would back up to this. The biggest point I want to make to you guys this evening is, from a pure zoning perspective, if you look at this, you know, the homes in Brookshade are either R2A or R3A is how they're zoned if you look at a zoning map. But in actuality, that is not how the land was developed. All of these houses, I would encourage you guys to drive through the neighborhood if you haven't already, are on extremely larger lots than what are being proposed. We are on an average of 1 acre. Our homes are set back somewhere around 115 to 125 feet from the back of our property lines. And they're talking about coming in and putting a back door 35 feet from the back of our property line with really no buffer, clear cutting everything. This is obviously going to have a drastic effect on our home values. We actually, I'll let Jennifer speak to that, but we actually already have evidence. There was a home that was under contract in our neighborhood, and as soon as those individuals found out about this potential development and what could occur, that contract fell through, and then those individuals had to accept drastically lower price for their home. It hasn't closed yet, but we do know it was significantly lower. You know, when most of us moved to Milton or bought homes in Milton, we came here because of the rural nature of the community. We like being on bigger lots. We don't like being able to look into our neighbor's house and watch them eat dinner, watch them watch TV, whatever they happen to do. And to me, the fact that this gentleman came in here this evening and literally spent 30 seconds, didn't even try to present or sell you guys on this development is really an insult. I take it as an insult. He also didn't have the courtesy to show up to the CZIM. It was a no-show. We had like 65 people in this room 2 weeks ago. Didn't even bother to show up. So we didn't get an answer to a lot of questions. We still haven't gotten an answer to a lot of questions. And, you know, we at some point would like to be heard in this, and we would like to, you know, get answers to our questions. We haven't gotten any answers, to be frank, at this point.
Well, coming to a board like this, our board, for a lack of better words, is a way to vet every one of these kinds of projects come through.
Yep.
Our number one job is the design of the subdivision. We don't get to really have a big say on what size the lots are or are not. That falls above our pay grade. But the reality of it is this. Everybody participating in the system and everybody getting up and being heard and speak what they need to say is what everybody needs to do, because that's what's going to keep the city being what the people want it to be. You know, take the time like you're doing. The gentleman that spoke before you, what a good job you did. You know, this is not adversarial in terms of any way between the builder and you guys. It's a fact of life. I mean, it's AG1, and he can go back to the board and say, I'm going to build AG1, and then we'll pretty much have to follow that set of plans.
Right.
For AG1.
Yep.
There wouldn't be anything to discuss.
And I think, you know, none of us are foolish enough to think that this property is not going to be developed, whether it's, you know, by these folks or by somebody else. We're just simply asking to keep it zoned AG1. You know, let's be good stewards of the city of Milton and what it's all about.
But another thing you need to do is make sure the project itself, we try on our board to try to make sure that we understand what this project is going to look like once it's built. Don't look at just this two-dimensional piece of paper and sit down, because we got to try to visualize how many feet the drop is, what the house is going to look, how high it's going to look from the neighbor house. And we have to protect the rights that you particularly have. I mean, if you bought in a subdivision that was 60-foot setbacks, we shouldn't be once going back there to change it and make it to a 40-foot setback if somebody comes and builds another house. Thank you for coming out.
Okay. I'd just like to add one other thing. I mean, I have 2 sons in this community. I coach a lot of sports. I talk to a lot of people that are city residents of Milton, and not one person is in favor that I've spoken to of this type of density in the city of Milton. I'll just close with that. Thank you.
Quick question for you. All your lots are 1 acre-ish or so?
I would say on average, okay?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, on average, about 1 acre.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious on the map, they're pretty good-sized lots, but you guys have sewer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Vickery Crest, you guys have septic, correct?
Part of it has sewer.
Well, part of the sewer.
Part of the subdivision has sewer.
Excuse me?
Those lots back there in the corner, I believe I was told they could not, because of the topography, they needed a lift station.
Yeah, they're gonna have to. So your question is, they're gonna have to run sewer past the homes that currently have septic to serve
Well,
this neighborhood.
you can see up in the top
they're
of the
gonna run
plan where the
septic out
sewer
the
line is
backside.
coming in. So that
Upper
backs-
backside by Brookshade is
That-
where it's, upper left corner is where sewer's going
here.
out.
Oh, that was stormwater, not sewer.
Is that storm?
No, that's sewer.
No, that's sewer.
Where I see.
Because there's a lift station.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
I believe the current proposal is to hook into sewer through the Brookshade, and I don't know, it's like the third or fourth house in, I believe.
So yeah,
Small
that,
lots next to big lots is never a good idea.
Thank you.
I think that's.
Thank you. Angela?
Sorry, I handed you Jeff Letterman's on that one.
thank you.
I believe you already have my yellow paperwork, so my name is Jim Herman. I live at 742 Brookshade Parkway. I will be behind this development. I'm not going to address the rural nature or anything like that again. I know you've heard it. It's a concern. It's my concern. Some of the wildlife we have back there is tremendous. We have owls, we have foxes, we have deer. Enough said. My concern is my main concern, if you look at where they plan on bringing through that sanitary sewer easement, it is along the creek. It is just discharging from the existing lake. If you go out and look, and I can leave a couple pictures, it's very difficult to see. When you come into the subdivision, if you look on the left-hand side, you will see where the creek goes underneath Brookshade Parkway and continues on through the neighborhood and then out on the other side of Hopewell Road. That creek is about 20 feet below Brookshade Parkway. I don't know how they're going to protect that creek when they put that sewer in. They're going to have to clear cut that. You're now going to have a 20-foot wide scar for a sewer line right next to an existing property. And I think that is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Pino, and I live at 175 Oakhurst Leaf Drive, and I do live in the Brookshade subdivision. I'm also a real estate professional that has worked in this area for several years, and I have sold a lot of the homes in Brookshade. I wanted to correct a couple of things first off that were said already here tonight that I think are incorrect. Just for the record, a council member asked if the properties in Brookshade or the homes in Brookshade were 3-sided brick with siding back. And I can tell you that the majority of the homes are not that type of construction. There are some that have a siding back, but typically if they're stucco on 4 sides. If they're brick on 4 sides. If they're siding on 4 sides. Of course, there are additional architectural elements and stacked stone and other things that you will find, but there's a high quality of construction. Another thing that I heard that I believe was incorrect, almost as a dismissal from the builder, was that, oh, those homes, they're 3-sided brick with siding back and they're 20 years old. Well, the oldest home in the neighborhood was built in 1997. That would make it 19 years old. And they were built as late as 2002. Okay, so my home was built in 2000 along with all the other homes on Oakhurst Leaf Drive. A third correction I'd like to make is that in Brookshade there is both sewer and septic. We do have both, and I've sold homes that are both. So I know that to be true. I do know that you are not the rezoning committee, and you're not, or the city council, you're not going to be here to, to hear everything about the rezoning, so I've got some specific concerns in regards to the design. Regarding the lot sizes and the proposals the last time I saw them, I don't know if there's been any changes to his plans since last week at that meeting, but there were some specific things that I think need to be addressed. One of them is that the size of the allowance for the size of the home, I think he's asking for 2,400 square feet per property or per house size, yet the plans that he showed were significantly larger. So, there's a couple problems with that. On one hand, if he sells the property, even though now his intention might be to build a larger home, if this does get rezoned and this plan gets approved, someone else can buy up that land and then proceed to build 2,400 square foot homes. He also said that they're going to be, the larger homes, the setbacks, as you've heard, are 35 feet from the back and 10 feet on each side. Well, so the other day, or last week, when he was discussing the type of home that would go on the property, he was trying to be assuring to us that they were going to be similar quality homes that were there already. And he said they would be side entry garage, 3-car garage, etc. He said the average home width would be about 65 feet. So if you look at the properties, they're 90 feet across. The majority of them are 90 feet across. We also asked the question about the 3-car garage, and he did say that the driveway for a turn-in for a 3-car garage is about 26 feet is the minimum you can have. So if you've got a 65-foot home, and if you've got a 26-foot driveway, you're already over where it needs to be, plus a 10-foot variance. I mean, it just doesn't add up. So what he's proposed to us last week, and he showed us pictures of homes and some drawings, that's not going to fit in what he's proposing here tonight. So there's a serious disconnect regarding the design and how that's going to fit in the lot that is cause for concern for me. Another concern I have regarding design is the integration of this phase into the existing phase or the existing neighborhood of Vickery Crest. There's been talk in Vickery Crest of them privatizing the roads. So that's a concern. How are they going to get entry into this development if Vickery Crest privatizes their roads and puts up a gate just like Crooked Creek already has done? I mean, the people that bought in Vickery Crest, I'm sure they did not intend that without their permission an additional phase would be built. It's a major concern for them. So I didn't see any plans there regarding the naming of a different subdivision or any signage that would go up to differentiate these very different homes from the existing homes. It just seems like there's a lack of planning here, and that's a concern. Let's see. I'll get there. So another thing regarding design is simply that there's no buffer in this design between the neighborhoods. And as people have already mentioned from both neighborhoods right now, that if you look at the average, I'll tell you about Brookshade specifically, they range in size from 0.7 acres per lot to about 2 acres per lot. I am an affected property. So my property at 175 Oakhurst Leaf Drive backs up to the bottom corner. It's the one that's the large pie shape. I have 1.41 acres. And so it absolutely does affect me. But that goes to show you that even though our neighborhood does have zoning for R3, as was already mentioned, it wasn't, they didn't take the minimum standard just because it was there and they could. And that's, I think, the difference between what this builder is asking for. Because if you do the average in Brookshade, I can tell you it is over an acre. And then also in Vickery Crest, there's a lot of green space that's built in that he's not factoring in as well. And there's no buffer here. So the buffer here in design, the reason I think it's important for the design review board is that even though you guys are looking at this design for this particular development, it's going to affect what we see from our neighborhood. It's going to affect, when I look out of my backyard, I'm no longer going to see old growth trees because they're going to clear cut the entire thing. If there's a 35-foot setback, for them to have any yard whatsoever and not have trees on top of their house, the entire lots would have to be completely clear cut. And that is absolutely going to affect the view and the design from the existing homeowners in Brookshade. And I think that that needs to be considered. It's not just what's happening in that particular new development, but what do you see from my street? What do you see from my backyard? Our homes are very widely set apart, and you can see straight through from the street. You know, there's, I don't really know, unfortunately, the setbacks in my neighborhood, but there is at least 50 feet between me and my neighbor's house. So, and probably more on both sides. So when someone is... Okay, 70 to 80 or more. I mean, like I said, it varies, and some of these have a very wide distance between them. But clearly, from the street, you'll be able to see just walking your dog down the sidewalks, not just the properties right there that will see a difference, but because we have wide set lots with large setbacks, you know, you're going to be able to see all of that, and it's going to affect our view and our quality of life for everyone. Finally, I'd like to talk about value, because I'm the real estate agent that is affected with a specific home on Brookshade Parkway. So that the property, when listed, was under contract within a week for a full price cash offer. And on the last day of due diligence, when they called the city of Milton told them about this proposed development. And when they asked how many or what percentage of developments get approved, I think they said between 80 and 90% of these types of rezonings get approved. And they wrote a letter to the clients, to my clients, and they said that, you know, they're really sorry, but they're just not willing to take a risk. And I understand. If I were in their shoes, I'm not saying I would do anything differently, but they walked away. And, you know, at that point, having been longer on the market, and they were there for 3 weeks, they got another offer, and it was a very difficult negotiation, but they're in the many tens of thousands lower now in property value, and it's set to close next Thursday. And I'll be able to provide, I already have permission from the owner to share that with you. I just can't do it right now. But when that's closed, I would like to share it with the city council, because I think it is a very clear indication that just the proposal, just the idea of this type of rezoning and how that would change the view from our neighborhood, and how it would destroy the wildlife and it would destroy the quality of life and what we're here for, has already affected us. And here's the problem. It's not just that one property. It's the fact that there are 9 homes currently active on the market, and there are 3 that are pending. And that as those homes go under contract and appraisals are ordered, this home is now going to be a comp for the next 6 months on that appraisal. And as those homes close at a lower value, as they've been affected by this particular sale, then they're the new lower standard. And it's going to go on and on. It could potentially take years to recover from this, from one home that was affected from simply the proposal. It's a very serious problem for all of us, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So I really ask that you would consider not just the design of what's being proposed, but how it's going to affect the design and the view from our neighborhood and from Vickery Crest.
As a board, we typically have asked the questions to ourselves that we're responsible as a city and municipality. If you bought a house on a 1 acre lot, it would be unfair of us to take and put a house next door to it that is on a 1/4 acre lot. So nobody that I'm aware of that, and you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but like, for example, anybody can present anything they want at this level and say, I want to put, how many houses, 18 houses here? But that doesn't mean that it will go anywhere, and it takes public outcry to get something to stop. The fact is, I don't think that this plan would go very far anywhere. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions to be answered. The presentation of this here is, this is just a shot across the bow of the ship, if you will, to see what they can do.
Well, here's my concern. The Robin, who works on the zoning committee, she expressed to us in the very first meeting when we were all here, there were, you know, between 60 and 70 people filled this room that night.
and the builder did not show up. And he sent his attorney, and the attorney didn't have any information. So he couldn't answer any questions. We were still here 2 hours. Mostly it was us talking with Robin and asking questions. And she clearly said, I told him this is not in keeping with what we would expect. This is not something that I imagine I will be able to support. But even knowing that, the builder still has enough confidence to spend time, effort, money, do studies, draw up plans, and feeling that he can get this passed through. And that's a big concern for me.
He didn't spend a lot of money to do this.
Well, enough money. He spent something. I mean, they're trying to push something through.
I know, but it's just a shot across the bow. And the fact of the matter is, we see a lot of this that comes across that ultimately never gets approved, and they are changed. They are changed to meet what the city guidelines really are. You know, like trying to keep the rural view shed, trying to really live up to our belief in the system that, for example, my house is, you're allowed to have, I'm an AG1 zone. Well, if they came and decided they're gonna build a house on a half-acre lot next to me, I'd be really upset. There's a 9-acre lot for sale behind me. If they came up and said, we're gonna put half-acre lots on that, I'd be down on that podium with you, being upset. But the fact of the matter is, this is just a system. They get to present, everybody gets to present what they want. It's an idea. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it's an idea.
And I certainly don't want to, nobody wants to take the right away from anyone to present anything, but simply the irresponsible presentation of this, of something that is clearly not in keeping, has now cost every single person here on the other side of this podium.
And you know, the vast majority of the people that do this do it exactly this way to us. We can't tell you what this is going to look like. I can't tell you what that subdivision is going to look like. No offense to you at all, but I can't tell you. I can just tell you that I look at this and say, wow, those are pretty close together. Wow, these are not. You know, and then you get down and try to get down. Then you got to start digging into what really is here.
Well,
and what's not.
As the citizens, I mean, we're just such a small representation here of our own little corner of Milton.
I know, but you represent the vast majority.
But I'll tell you, yeah, we're very concerned, and we're watching, and we're paying attention now. And you know, some of the things that have happened with, for an example, what's going on Ebenezer Road. When that came up for rezoning, the city staff had already recommended against it. The Planning Commission voted against it 7-0 unanimously, that they were not for it. And somehow, at 12:30 in the morning, after debating it for hours and hours, the City Council approved it 3-2, and there was a last-minute switch from the builder's stipulations in place of the city's stipulations for their recommendations. And there are City Council members who admitted to not even reading them. So when the mayor vetoed that, there were some members of the City Council that supported the veto because, I mean, it's like it's a broken process. I mean, that's so much like Obamacare with the 1,000-page stack of documents in the middle of the night.
But
Give me a
you
break.
know, honestly,
I
that's
was
what
shocked.
we depend on with, like, for Angela and Bob and Mark and Robin and all those. We're normal citizens, and we look at this stuff before we come in here. We kind of know where these properties are. I happen to know a lot of the subdivisions because of what I do for a living, but the fact is, we're not the experts as this board. We're not. We're here really representing more like what the citizens want than what the legal staff might want, or the legal staff. So we have to ask Robin, we have to ask Bob, we have to ask everybody, how do we follow the rules? Do we make sure we're staying in conformance with the rules? You can't stop somebody's right to sell the lot.
Right.
And you can't stop them from developing it as an AG1.
That's right.
You can't.
And I haven't heard anyone say that they'd be against development as an AG1. But everyone that I am aware of in my subdivision and in Vickery Crest wants responsible development. And just, I mean, this is a very slippery slope. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once we squeeze it out. And if these...
I agree with you that this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think most of us do agree with you. I don't see this as being a bad idea, just because I agree that the home values are going to be affected by what these guys do. If they're going to put small houses or even similar sized houses on smaller lots, it's going to affect the property values. That's a big concern. I look at this thing, I say, why can't they shift it right 150 feet and give you guys the buffer you expect, give you the same they have the same backyard that you guys have, and then you could look at it and say, okay, that looks similar to what they've got in Brookshade. It's complementing what's at the end of Vickery Crest, and I think that's the kind of stuff that makes sense.
Or they could simply develop it as AG1 lots.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
if I were to go take this thing out, take this lot and drive right through lot 26 all the way to 19 and do the whole thing AG1 on the back and then put the homes right in the middle. It's far fewer lots, but at the end of the day, if it's me and I'm making my recommendation, is to keep it AG1, just because.
Thank you.
Regardless of what. But regardless of what these other things are zoned around there, to me, it's more the land use is more important than what it says in terms of on a zoning book or whatever. It doesn't just stick those homes in there. Just doesn't fit. So, like I said, we can do what we want in terms of our recommendation to. I guess it goes to what BZA next or Planning Commission.
Well, Planning Commission.
I would, to the extent we add any recommendations, mine would be to keep it AG1. And to design the neighborhood that fits an AG1 neighborhood.
I would agree with that. I think the nice thing about Brookshade in both areas is even though they had an R3A and an R2A, they still basically developed it pretty darn close to an AG1. And, granted, Brookshade has the luxury of having some sewer, but that doesn't mean these guys deserve to have a sewer. I think if these guys came back and said, let's build something similar to Brookshade, close to an acre or at an acre or whatever, and then they wanted to put in sewer, I think that would probably be acceptable too. But the way it's laid out now, I don't see that flying. And I know you mentioned Ebenezer, and I think that's everything we deal with is on a case-by-case basis. Ebenezer is a completely different deal than this.
I understand. My point was simply that there was public outcry against it, that the staff here made recommendations against it, that the Planning Commission was against it, and that, as citizens, we're paying attention now. You've got our attention.
I understand.
When it goes through the process all the way to the last second, and it's 12:30 in the morning, and the citizens feel confident that the city has our back, and then it gets to the end time and things are voted the opposite way, it makes us perk up and pay attention. We're watching now. So
but
we
at the end
appreciate
of the day, it worked out to be right because the mayor did have the guts to stand up and veto what he needed to veto.
That's right. And I don't mean in any way for it to seem that I'm not appreciative of you serving. I serve on the Atlanta Board of Realtors. I'm a vice president there. I understand that this is your personal time, and I appreciate you hearing our concerns.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking the time.
One other comment I would add, I mean, I agree with AG1 as well, but I do think, listening to the homeowners from Vickery Crest, that I think there needs to be more bigger planning here before you just even do the whole AG1, because I think you've got to tie in with what Vickery Crest is doing. They're looking at privatizing the road. You really need to look at this at a bigger picture, I think.
That's right.
And to me,
there's a lot of unanswered questions in this development as a whole. I just feel like it's a bad plan on so many levels.
And the sewer, it's
the sewer. There's no entrance.
There's got to be a bigger picture here.
Road.
And what's going to happen with the land next to this? I mean, what is
it's
this
a single
doing?
a single owner, and his comments from his attorney that he sent or his representative were that he's going to outlive the rest of his life there. But who knows how long that will be, right? And then so essentially he's only made a deal with them, and the deal is contingent upon the selling of this exact little tract. So he's doing what best suits his needs and desires, which is absolute privacy, at the expense of everyone else around him. And the builders bought into that, hook, line, and sinker. He's fine with that. He'll make money off of this if he can get you guys to approve it. But all of the rest of us and the rest of Milton will experience a negative snowball effect from that.
I think this will take in a lot more planning, a lot more work, a lot more presentation. This is just one step in the process of vetting what this is or is not. I think that the city really does, and I can't speak for the council because I know most of them, but I can't speak for what they believe or don't believe. If we do stay with the AG1, I still would like for it to be a planned subdivision, and I'd like to be a CUP only because you designate as a CUP. then the people like Angela and Bob can sit down and say, this is what we want. If we're going to do this, this is going to make it nicer. So it gives the citizens more control over what this is going to look at the end of the day. If
And
they
in the
came
end,
back
the
and said,
developer
I'm just
will
going to
make
do
more money.
AG1, and they put the road through there and everything's got 1 acre on it, there's not much the city can do about it.
You understand that part, right? I mean, the audience needs to understand that's a very important point, is that if it goes AG1, the city can provide very little input into what they're doing. If they modify it to a CUP, then the city can put a lot of conditions on it. So there is a value of CUP.
Well, and I think if you just saw the case before this, that is a very good example of what can go wrong.
Right, but
there.
you know, so a lack of planning on someone else's part doesn't mean that everyone else should have to suffer. I mean, I think in that, I didn't give up to speak because I just had one yellow form and I'd already written on it about this one. But my opinion on that issue is that, you know, if the developer or the builder made the choice knowing what the land was at the time, then he already made that choice. And why should everyone else, including all the thousands of people that drive down Providence Road every day, why should we have to look at, you know, 30-foot walls with 3-story homes on top of them simply because someone else took a shortcut earlier thinking I'll just deal with that later? Well, sorry, that's not how life works.
It's called a salesman.
Well, that's zoning, though. I mean, that's.
Well, now that he's got the properties the way they are, they don't conform to build that type of property. The answer's no. Figure it out. And until he does, they're going to sit and be
Well, the
a
problem
part
is
of the
if he
rural
builds it,
landscape.
if he
They've already
builds it,
built.
if he builds it just like the plan says, then it's going to devalue the houses that are closest to it. It's going to harm the homeowners that are there if we're talking about the
It'll
Providence
actually look
Road.
worse on Providence Road. If he pushes the house further down the hill.
Are we done with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are.
Thank you.
Any more public comment?
Yeah, any additional comment? Two more. What the heck?
I apologize for the Philly shirt. We're in last place. We'll be there shortly with the Braves. So, my name is Rick Bach. I'm at 215 Oakhurst Leaf, and I'm directly behind the proposed subdivision. And I'm not going to go over everything that's already been said. I think from Dickory, terrific. Jennifer, outstanding. Jeff, Mr. Herman, great job. But I've heard some good things up here today. One, a standard of land use. And I think all of you across the other side have said, well, if I'm on 1 acre, I don't want a quarter acre built behind me. We all moved here from Milton and bought our homes with the expectation of AG1. So we pretty much set that standard. I see a lot of understanding on this part of the podium in the sense of what was proposed in the front of you by the developer if the land sale went through. Also from Robin, who said when she first looked at it that probably didn't have much of a chance of getting through. And you folks have really kind of reiterated that today. So to a point that was made earlier, I think folks in Dickory and us at Brookshade, we do like to cut our grass. And it's something that you said a little bit earlier. So we do like the larger lots. We like the privacy. We don't want a 35-foot setback from our house to the neighbors that would be sitting there behind us. So there are some good thought processes that went on here today. And I'm really not going to review each and every one of them because I think we've gone through all of that. Mr. Herman made the comment on the sewer going through our subdivision and the easement that would go into Vickery. I think that was a very good point because you just have scarred land as it goes through there. So what happens to that property? As you look at Vickery, I think the point was made by several of you here today that, you know, if there's an extension of the Vickery crest, then those homes should be developed to the same standard that are there currently. And so I hear and see a lot of good things from you folks here today, so we appreciate that understanding. And I'm not going to regurgitate them all. I think everyone here has made their point, and I appreciate the fact that you've listened to us and seem to be quite receptive to it. So thank you for your time. I didn't want that to get in there because obviously we opposed this rezoning from AG1 and wanted to stay on an AG1 basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. My name is Tom Capish. I live at 355 Oakhurst Leaf Drive in Brookshade. my lot is not next to what's going to be built here. I am on the other side of the subdivision. What I wanted to do tonight, and you've heard all these other details, is just let you know that there's 120 some homes in Brookshade. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg of the concern of the people that live in Milton here. We don't want cluster homes. We have bought into, the large lots, the ranches, everything that makes Hopewell Drive so nice. And there's literally hundreds of people that are upset about this. And I want you guys to understand, maybe they're not represented here tonight, but they're there. And if this thing proceeds, you'll certainly hear all their voices.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any additional public comment? One more, looks like.
Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase. Thank you. This has been a great dialogue tonight. I'm really impressed with this committee. Some really good questions and good comments. I'm with the Milton Coalition. Some of you might know about us. We're a nonpartisan group of concerned citizens advocating for clean, competent, courageous, and citizen-centric government. We've decided to follow this particular zoning case from the start to the finish, and we're documenting the process as we go along because we have some serious concerns about the zoning process in Milton. Our position on this particular issue is that it's zoned AG1 under the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. It should stay AG1. Secondly, access should be from Hopewell Road. The owner of this property owns 44 acres. It comes all the way up to Hopewell Road. There's no reason for him to come through Vickery Crest. And, all of us can think about, the implications of that, of construction traffic for a couple of years coming through a neighborhood. And that's why Vickery Crest, if they have to, they'll ask the city to abandon the roads and maintain the roads themselves. So I've been in business a long time, and when somebody comes selling something to me, I figure that's the best I'm ever going to get from them. SR Homes has done a horrible job, okay? Absolutely horrible job so far. Many people complained that they've called SR Homes, called the attorney, have never gotten a response. There was a CZIM that was held. 60 people were there. The builder never showed up. But not only did he not show up, he did not call the next day, okay, to apologize, to provide any explanation. The city called multiple times, finally got a call 8 days later, okay? People rearranged their travel. They left work early. They got babysitters, okay? At the public participation meeting, the builder basically kind of shrugged, okay? The least he could have done is maybe offer to pay for the sitting services for that night. So, we're not seeing what I would think is, very good behavior from the builder, and I think it only gets worse from here, okay? How's he going to do when he actually is building the neighborhood, okay? This is the best we're going to see. Tonight, what I saw from him in terms of, he got up here for 2 minutes. No drawings, nothing. This is the only thing that we're seeing. Is that what you typically see? I'd like to see some drawings or something. And they're saying, well, the owner's out of the country. So, this should be a big deal to the owner. Why isn't he in the country? Why isn't he talking to the builder and his representative back here? So,
SR Homes probably has this under contract subject to them getting what they want.
Right.
So they don't actually own the property, do you? No, sir. Okay.
So
with that being said, what I'm trying to say to you is, this is just a shot across the bow.
Yeah, I
to
heard
see
that. I heard
exactly
that.
what the outcry will be
right.
to this project.
And they're getting an outcry.
And they are.
We've never seen 60 people at a CZIM. I asked Robin. She said, I've never seen it except for a cell phone tower case.
But I can promise you that everybody that serves on our board here, everybody really does care, and everybody tries to listen with an open heart.
It's very
and mind
clear. It's very clear to me.
The right thing.
It's very clear to me.
And it's always that with these properties. We're just trying to keep everybody whole. We're trying to be the keeper at the gate. This is a vetting process. They get to make the promise. They get to come up and say what they got to say. then we can say we don't like it. If we don't like it, then it moves on to the next table that we didn't like it.
Yeah.
You know, if the public continues to follow the program and continues to outcry what they want, then the reality of this getting developed anything other than AG1 is probably a good reality.
Yeah. So that would be our position. So I'll finish it here. There was a public participation meeting also. The notices were received by the public on Friday for it was a Memorial Day weekend for a meeting that was held on Wednesday, okay? So, you know, to me, that's almost designed to suppress public participation, but nevertheless, 25 people showed up. So, and I wanted to say one other thing because I got concerned about the CUP comment, okay? CUP to me is, I'm concerned anytime I hear CUP zoning, okay? Because the zoning with CUP, there's a site plan and conditions. You have to get the zoning right the first time, okay? And we saw with Ebenezer that night how horribly wrong they got it. And thank goodness the mayor vetoed that ordinance, okay? So when I see CUP, staff calls that the Burger King ordinance, okay? Which is basically have it your way, which is the builder's way, okay? So when I hear CUP, I know, Ed, you and I disagree on this, but CUP is, I'd be careful with that.
I would tell you that my position is that whatever abbreviated form you want to take, what you're going to call it, I'm interested in what's going to give the city and the staff more control over what's going to be done in a subdivision versus less. If somebody comes up and says, we can build one house per acre and we can put the road, this is where we're going to do it, and the city has no control over anything else, I think that that's what you get with clear cutting. I can show you a subdivision currently that one of my best friends lives in and bought in. And I drive through that subdivision and I go, these are really beautiful houses. However, they cut every cotton picking tree down known to mankind and graded everything out to a flat lot when it's not a flat place. And they got away with it because it was AG1 only and they had no variances, no nothing.
Well, but let me dispute you a little bit there. AG1 enhancements have been on, the docket forever, and unfortunately, the city has obsessed over conservation subdivisions for the last 2 years. That sucked all the air out of the room. We now have AG1 enhancements. It's a half an inch thick, okay? That's what we need to do. We need to enhance AG1. There's a lot that can be done. We can bring in the best elements of the CSO into the AG1. There are a lot of good ideas, okay? The city should not focus on a single idea that's divisive. There are a lot of good ideas around zoning that citizens can unite around, including AG1 enhancements, including a strengthened tree ordinance, okay? Our group just recently submitted an enhanced tree ordinance. The arborists took it to the Planning Commission. They loved it, and hopefully in the next couple of months we're going to see that. We looked at Alpharetta's ordinance and realized they had a much tougher ordinance than Milton had. So we're going to have an ordinance that looks like Alpharetta's. So there's a lot that we can do in this city, and we need not to focus on single divisive ideas, but we need to focus on ideas that the community can unite around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? Any additional comments from the board? For the record?
One thing I want to add is we need to find a way to stop a question being brought to the city, like what happened with this buyer of this house, and they get someone in the staff that I'm sure made an honest comment that, 70, 80, 90% of those get approved, and that costs the neighborhood, costs that homeowner. That shouldn't have happened because, yeah, 78% of some things might get approved, but 70, 80% of rezonings from, AG1 to something less don't happen.
Right.
So that should have never happened, and that's got to get stopped. So we got to talk to city council or staff or the city manager or somebody to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Totally agree. If those are all the comments.
Well, if I could get, if you all have any specific comments, that would be great about setbacks, street design,
I don't know, from what I heard, I think
Pretty
AG1 seems to be the overwhelming.
I
that
would
is
even.
what it
I
should
think there's
be.
some differentiation on AG1, so I think it would be simple to say this board would not necessarily recommend rezoning it to the RZ3 or 2.
True.
You know, what the end result is. At the end result here, I think folks want 1 acre lots or quasi 1 acre lots to be built there to protect the rural viewshed and to have homes that meet the character of the other homes that are surrounding there. It's pretty simple. I don't. Whatever our recommendation is here, what the end result is that we recommend that the end product of whatever neighborhood, because he has every right to build on that if he buys it, should be in character with the homes and the neighborhoods that are currently surrounding it in terms of lot size and structure and design.
Right. I would say
that's just pretty standard from DRB's standpoint.
The other thing I'd like to point out is if in fact they're going to use the existing road as the entrance into this subdivision, they're going to have to come up with some sort of an arrangement with the existing subdivision for improvements of such road to make it look nicer, give the community something that improves their community for the use of the road.
Honestly, if it was me, it doesn't really make any logical sense to cut through that neighborhood to begin with, but I recognize that's not really something that can or can't be changed in terms of the design here.
I'd be careful with roads. I mean, I think from my own experience at Crooked Creek and Mike's as well, the intent of the original road is really important. You know, when our subdivision was developed, that road was never a cut-through road. The road wasn't even finished. You've got a very similar problem here. If I was in Vickery, I would just highly recommend that you kind of work with Fulton County and get that nailed down quickly in the city. That would be my advice. But because intent of the original road is really important. So I would say as a recommendation, you know, Vickery needs to be a really big part of whatever happens in any of that property, as well as Brookshade. That's my recommendation.
If the Vickery Road is used, the developer should be giving up something to this community of Vickery to make an improvement. Should be a cost related to the road.
And I think that is all the comments. So we're finished with courtesy reviews. Any old business? I actually do have one old business item. It's really quick. We had an approval come through here. It was Scott Reese for 2 properties on Francis Road that back up to Crooked Creek. We need to ensure that sidewalk is built. My understanding is that should have been a requirement. That is not happening yet. So that needs to be investigated and ensure that that happens.
What? Any subdivision?
No, they're 2 separate home lots.
There was a one single lot subdivided.
There's 2.
2 houses.
Right. And that was Scott Reese. Right. There are sidewalks on both sides, and I don't see them putting in the connector.
Francis.
It's on Francis Road. Right. Okay. That's all my old business.
Yeah,
Any new business?
Well, one other old business question, and I don't know if you want to bring it up or not, but what is the status of the Bates fence thing?
Yes. That's a good
Because
question.
it has
over.
been,
Yeah.
They allowed him to have it.
no, I know they were granted a variance conditioned upon landscaping on the road. It's been
Which one was
probably
this?
Bates's fence,
Bates
the variance.
Oh, yeah, the ones that got
Yeah.
built.
And
Yes.
the condition of the variance was that they put landscaping in
And stain the fence.
and stain the
And
fence.
stain the fence.
Nothing has been,
So how long do you guys go before you?
we'll give them another.
I know that the city arborist has spoken with Mr. Bates. They've gone back and forth a few times about the type of vegetation. I don't know if they've agreed upon a final plan, but he has spoken to them, so we will check on that.
One other old business item is the school on Bethany Bend Road.
Hey, Tim?
There is that awful trailer that we didn't want is just sitting there with stuff. It looks terrible. I was going to take a picture and send it to you. This is what we did not want to happen. this is exactly what happened. So,
Which
you
one
know,
is this?
this is the school that we fought over. Yes, the Montessori school, yeah. Ugly looking trailers sitting over there with grass growing up. They need to be fined. That was not what we all agreed to. So I'm really not happy with that. And I'm surprised I haven't gotten calls on it yet.
But Bob, that's the very thing I said was going to happen.
This is exactly what we
It's
said.
exactly
we did
what I
not want
said.
that.
I
Yeah,
thought they were supposed to
exactly.
get like a nicer trailer.
Well,
Yeah.
they didn't get it. They got